Some losses are just a hell of a lot more annoying than others. Some are just a big old stick in my craw, and tonight was one of them. The Golden State Warriors should have won that game. The LA Clippers are the official thorn in Dub Nation's side, and we're going to break down a frustrating loss that was very preventable, that the Warriors did to themselves. The good news is we're not losing faith in this team from this one game, but they cannot play like utter crap like they did tonight. Sophia Jones will join me. It's Monday, no big surprise there. It's a Monday Night Live post-game edition of Golden Days. Let's get into it.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. It was a pretty crazy night.
Let's go!
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. 'Cause I get what I want and I like what I see.
Damn you, Norman Powell. Damn you. Welcome to the Golden Days. I am your host, Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Threads, on Instagram, at Dog Wild, over on Twitter at Surf Journalist. For now, I'm giving a big middle finger to Blue Sky. 2 social media platforms is more than enough. Sophia Jones will join me in just a minute, and apparently we've got some slight technical difficulties going on here. I just noticed a lot of the comments in the chat vanishing. So if you wrote something, please resend it. I don't know what happened and what's going on. I sincerely apologize for that. And Sophia Jones, if you're watching this, I just resent you the link. So hopefully you will join me in just a second. But that was a very frustrating loss. And before we get into that, let me first real quickly give some love to the official sponsor of Golden Days, and that is Bet Online. I hope some of you at least won some money from this very frustrating loss that we're going to break down in just a moment. But first things first. Again, I brought up hopefully you winning some money from betting because our official sponsor right now, at the moment, we've got some things cooking in the oven. Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting, from the earliest odds to in-game live betting. Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, and so much more. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. And there is my partner in crime, Sophia Jones. Great to see you. Perfect timing. I just finished the ad read. That was a tough loss, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. We could point to reasons like turnovers. We can point to reasons like missed free throws. We can point to reasons like baffling, nonsensical rotations. All of the above resulted in this loss. And again, I'm peeved. I never had much of an emotional response to the LA Clippers until tonight. Now I have emotions directed toward them, and they're not pleasant. They're entirely negative. I have straight up hatred for them. And when I say hatred, it's sports hatred, obviously. There's no legitimate hatred going on there. But sports-wise, they're completely on my shit list right now. I don't like them. Sophia, how are you doing? Your immediate reaction to the Golden State Warriors suffering a very frustrating 102-99 loss that literally came down to a bunch of game-winning or game-tying shots, none of which fell in. How are you and your reaction?
I'm doing well, and my immediate reaction to the game was that obviously the Warriors lost to the Clippers earlier this year, and kind of thought that was a little bit of a dropped game where, it was still the beginning of the season. They were getting their footing, and going into this one, I personally felt like they were going to come out to send a message, but that just didn't happen. And the entire game was encapsulated in that last possession where it was just a bunch of bobbled passes and missed shots.
Yeah, and before we get into all the data, which is going to explain a lot of what went wrong, and my guess is most of the media you consume out there will blame this on free throws, will blame this. We can also throw refs into this as well. The officiating was atrocious. I mean, the ball at the end of the game was literally bounced. It bounced out of bounds. Everyone saw it. Kalena Azubuike called it out publicly. And the refs are just like, whoops. Like, dude, if you're an NBA official, you don't get to have a case of the Mondays. Your job is to call a game accurately, astutely. That was not happening tonight. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the first thing I want to focus on, Sophia, if you don't mind, and you can totally disagree, obviously, is the rotations. I was very displeased with the minutes that I saw in this game tonight. I was particularly displeased with the fact that you need a 3 to tie this game, and Gary Payton II is out there, a player who had 0 points tonight, a player who is not known for three-point shooting, and especially not this year, yet he was out there as one of the final 5. That made no damn sense to me, and I kept noticing GP2 because, again, I don't think he deserves minutes over Moses Moody. I don't think he deserves minutes over really anybody that's currently on this roster right now. If his defense was where it was 3 years ago, I would wholeheartedly continue endorsing the minutes, but it's just not there. And on a team this deep, you have better options. And for Moses Moody to play 15 minutes, for Kyle Anderson, who I thought was actually playing a great game, to play just 12 minutes, for Jonathan Kaminga, who I thought was one of the best players on the floor tonight, to get just 19 minutes, that is where I want to start with first, because I thought that was egregious. For some reason, Steve Kerr just went with his starters tonight, and Lindy Waters was one of the 5 starters. It was good to see him back. I thought Trace Jackson-Davis was the only one of the starters who was actually earning his keep out there. The rest of them, outside of maybe Stephen Curry, and even he had some issues, but Steph is Steph. I mean, he's one of the greatest ever. I'm never going to complain about him playing, but the rest of the lineup, I thought there could have been better minutes distributed. Sophia, what did you see out there in terms of rotations, if you don't mind us starting on that topic?
I agree, especially where there just felt like there were a lot of gaps during the game where the offense was either stagnant or they're having issues hitting shots. And another thing that I noticed, especially in that second unit as well, they almost tended to overpass a lot and not actually take the easy shots that they had presented to them. So I'm not sure what was kind of going through their minds in that scenario. But like you said, with the starters, Trace Jackson-Davis, he performed well. Steph kind of more so woke up in that second half. But otherwise, I think that when you look at Jonathan Kaminga's minutes and how he was able to offensively produce, and then Kyle Anderson, his size and his IQ on both ends of the floor, I felt was really showcased this past game. It was a little bit questionable what players were on the floor during certain points of the game. I would definitely agree with that.
And I understand, like, to the people, whether you want to be a contrarian or whether you want to make a point about GP2's defense on that second to last possession where he got the steal. That was awesome. No doubt about that. But you still needed 3 points, and the steal was kind of like icing. All you needed was a stop, and which is not as difficult as getting a steal. I get the theory of not calling a timeout for a final possession because the defense isn't set. You have a chance to push the ball. But at the same time, when you have a lineup or you have a roster, like the Golden State Warriors, where you can put out on the floor in a scenario where you need 3 points, you have a chance to put 5 legitimately lethal 3-point shooters out there. These are the 5 players who I thought should have been out there when you need 3 points. You could have had Stephen Curry. You could have kept Lindy Waters out there, fine. You could have had Buddy Hield out there. You could have had Moses Moody out there. Jonathan Kaminga's 3-point shot is starting to fall at a bare minimum, if not for the 3-point shot. Have him out there for maybe a putback, given his size. Or Andrew Wiggins, who's 2 of 4 from deep. Have him out there. He was out there already. I'm just looking at other options. My point is that this team, if there's anything they don't have a shortage of, it's 3-point shooters. So to have Gary Payton II out there on that final possession, I just thought they should have planned that better. In the final timeout, that the Warriors took. They should have communicated what to do on that final possession. I just thought that was a total breakdown. And to push all the way back, this team was down 102 to 92. They go on a 7-0 run to push this within 3. They have a chance to tie it. And obviously, we're going to talk about the whole game that led to this, but I thought that was a failing. I just thought that was a clear-cut failing. And this is where, again, you see the veterans getting the minutes over the young players, and the young players oftentimes are delivering. Maybe Brandon Podziemski being an exception. We could talk about that in just a moment. But I don't know. I mean, Sophia, have you ever been in a situation like when you played, for example, at San Jose State, where like, did you ever have moments where you just looked at the coaching staff and you thought to yourself, why are you not playing this person? Why are you not playing me? Or were things copacetic at San Jose State and you didn't have that situation? But I mean, from your perspective, like, go through what you were feeling tonight in those final moments.
Yeah, it's definitely not just at the Division One level. I think back when I was like in elementary school playing in the YMCA league, there you can always look at certain points where you question the coaches' decisions, definitely. But I mean, that's why they're the coaches sometimes and we're the players. I would say specifically on that last possession, I don't know if I'm necessarily upset with Gary Payton being out on the floor in that scenario, especially with how much the Clippers were hunting that switch with James Harden with Steph Curry, so that Steph was guarding James Harden. So I feel like having another guard to hopefully kind of diffuse that situation in the backcourt was a smart decision. I mean, they ended up getting a stop because they wouldn't have even had a chance to tie the game if you don't get the defensive stop in the first place.
Right, but
with that,
But the shot clock was in the Warriors' favor. Like they didn't, like, the Clippers didn't have to just run the ball out. I mean, they would have had to force a shot at some point. The Warriors were primed to get one more possession regardless, which is why, like, for example, Bernardo Medostro in the chat who writes, while GP2 really should not have made that last 3-point attempt, the situation would not have happened if not for GP2 making that steal. And my counter to that is they didn't have to get a steal. The steal looked good. All right. It was awesome. And if it was a 2-point game, it's a whole different story because now you can push the ball and get an easy bucket, but you needed a 3 and you were going to get the ball back regardless with like 12 or 14 seconds left on the shot clock, which is why again, you could have planned that better where, let's say you get a stop like that, call a timeout. You had timeouts left. And for a team that has so many lethal shooters, I just don't understand how you justify having him out there for that final possession. And I know that's a nitpick, but part of the reason why I look at GP2's minutes is because he was constantly being put out there in this game when you have better options. Like, for example, at the very beginning of the game, Trayce Jackson-Davis, who I thought played a solid night of basketball, and he clearly belongs. And if there's any clear-cut difference between this game and the Clippers game from the first time they played, where the Clippers also won, and again, the Clippers are now the bane of the Warriors' existence at this point in time, Zubac destroyed the Warriors. He was eating them up alive inside. You could pinpoint that as being the single biggest reason the Warriors lost by 8 the first time they played. Tonight, it was a different story. The Clippers were a 3-point shooting machine. The Warriors' perimeter defense colossally failed. And so I can maybe see GP2 getting minutes for that reason. I get it. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, I thought, was fantastic. And, you know, and he got 20 minutes total. But the whole reason I bring up GP2 is because Trayce Jackson-Davis was taken out in the first quarter. And I even have it here in my notes. He got taken out at the 6:46 mark of the first quarter. That means Trayce Jackson-Davis played 4 minutes, 14 seconds before Steve Kerr was like, I can't take this anymore. 4 minutes and 14 seconds is more than enough. And he took Trayce Jackson-Davis out of the game. And who does he put in? He puts in GP2 right away. The Warriors got smaller because GP2 for obviously is only 6'2". And we kept seeing this level of substitution. Whereas you get a guy like Moses Moody who comes in the game much longer. At this stage of his career, I don't see a big difference between Moody and GP2 defensively. Offensively, there is a colossal difference. I guess I'm just tired of Moody's minutes being taken away by GP2. And that's a whole separate issue with the end of game situation because but even though I would prefer Moody taking that final shot, but it's just, this has just been a constant thing for years now where, at least for me, and this is my annoyance and I apologize, but just the wrong players getting wrong minutes. And I don't know. You clearly are not as frustrated as me, and I get that. And I'm jealous of you for being happier and healthier mentally. But with that said, do you understand the frustration a little bit? Like, what's your take on the minutes and the rotations?
No, I definitely understand the frustration. And I would say specifically for this game, what I felt like was the Warriors' Achilles heel, especially on defense, was that every single time, especially James Harden got the ball, he touched the paint. And every time he touched the paint, everyone collapsed. And then that's when automatically he would just kick it out for three. And especially Norman Powell, he was just hitting everything tonight. And so when you have longer players, that helps the ability to be able to just have the paint even look more clogged so that James Harden isn't able to facilitate as much as he wants to, which I feel like that was a huge reason why the Warriors went down big in the first half for sure.
And thank you for covering for me there. I had to let my dog out, but no, you made excellent points there. Whole heart and the chat. Carson Taylor dropping $1.99. Thank you. Writing Kerr should have called a timeout. And adding to his gripe, 29 minutes for Lindy Waters. Besides the GP2 minutes, and on a side note, I hate the fact that I'm sitting here criticizing GP2 because personally, I love the dude. Chemistry-wise, he's one of the most important pieces of this team. Behind the scenes, GP2 is the guy that makes everything more relaxed. I have nothing, zero against him personally, and I really don't like criticizing him, but you know, I call out what's, I guess when I look at the game, all I'm doing here on this program is calling out what I see that could be improved upon in terms of rotations and just overall play. And I think that's just one thing that this team could improve upon is giving other guys minutes. You know, did you now to respect Carson's point here, Lindy Waters played 28 minutes, 30 seconds. Some box scores might round that up and say 29. He finished the game with 6 points. He was 2 of 4 from deep. He had a big one late in the game, especially. Added 5 rebounds in this game. Had 3 steals in this game. I don't hate the minutes. The only reason why I could sympathize with Carson is, again, you look at the rest of the bench, whereas Lindy Waters gets 29 minutes, Moses Moody got 15. Kyle Anderson got 12. Kaminga got 10 minutes less. That I really did not understand. What was your take, Sophia, on the minute distribution tonight? And did you think Lindy Waters played too much?
Like I said, with the perimeter defense, I feel like his length helps, but I don't know how much his length actually helped over a Kaminga, over a Moody, or over a Kyle Anderson, who it felt like they were just a little bit more impactful, especially even more on the offensive end as well.
Yeah, big time. And again, it wasn't just the rotations. Like that was not the only thing that went wrong tonight. For example, Draymond Green told Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle, and side note, Sam will be back on the show soon. I love that guy. Draymond Green quoted as saying tonight, "I sucked." That was his quote. Yes, you did. Draymond. Well, Sophia, what was your take on the turnovers? Let's shift gears there because the Golden State Warriors had 13 turnovers at the half. They cut that down in the second half, and I think there was a correlation between them closing this game, coming back, making it close, with the fact that in the second half they cut the turnovers down to 6. But 19 turnovers in this game. And when you look at the individual ones, Draymond Green had 6 turnovers. There was that one particularly costly one very late in the game. I'm sure if you watched, and this goes for everyone, you remember that. 6 turnovers is inexcusable. That is just very bad. And Draymond, thankfully, is someone who, for the most part, is self-aware. I know some of you might disagree with that statement, but especially when it comes to his basketball play, he's a very self-aware individual. 9 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, a fantastic triple single night for him, but 6 turnovers, Sophia. That is brutal. Want to add he was 2 of 3 from deep. The 3-point shot is real. That is crazy. But your thoughts on Draymond Green with all the stats I just presented to you, including 6 turnovers?
Yeah, it almost seems like with Draymond, there's a lot of instances where his motor is really good for him and it really helps the team, whether that's getting rebounds, facilitating, or just pushing the offense in general. He's very good at talking and directing on both ends of the floor. So in that case, his motor is really good, but sometimes his motor is almost so much to a fault where that's where you get some of those turnovers where it just seems like his mind is moving a little bit too fast. So that's kind of what I got from a couple of those turnovers that he had this game.
Alwyn Daniel, I apologize, in the chat, writing that GP2 was a +3 in terms of net rating, while Trayce Jackson-Davis was a -11. And that's a perfect example of where you have to remind yourself these net rating statistics, especially for just one game individually, is incredibly subjective, because Trayce Jackson-Davis is not worthy of a -11 tonight. That -11 is largely because he played most of his 20 minutes with the starters, who were struggling this entire night. I posted something, and I'll post this publicly here on the show tonight as well. But there was a stat I posted. It was right before the half, and it represented the plus minus of the bench versus the starters, just to give you an idea of the disparity between the two sides. And this is why Trayce Jackson-Davis had the negative 11. Here, let me just pull this up real fast so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Well, this is one here. I'll show you this one first. This was earlier in the game, just to give you folks an idea of where net rating does not necessarily tell the whole story. So this was earlier in the game, and I'm going to have a second graphic shown to you in just a moment here. But as you can see, this was like closer to, I think this was taken, I don't think there's a timestamp on here, is there? I think this was in the first quarter of the game. And you can see Draymond Green was a -11. Stephen Curry was a -11, and Trayce Jackson-Davis, if anything, this highlights how he was playing better than his teammates out there, because while Dre and Steph were -11, Trayce Jackson-Davis was just a -6. And notice in this graphic as well, Gary Payton II was also a -6, because in the first half he was not playing well at all. He was playing he was playing very similar to what most of the starters were doing, with the exception of Trayce Jackson-Davis. I thought Trayce Jackson-Davis was fantastic. What I'm trying to say here is don't rely on net rating to fully understand his performance on the night. And here's the other graphic I want to show you. And this was at the end of the first half. And if you can see this, this is just the starters at the end of the first half. -21, -15, -14, and you can guess who that is. That's Trayce Jackson-Davis. -17, -21. The bench is the only reason why this game was not a full-blown blowout in the first half. Did they play better in the second half? Absolutely. Stephen Curry had a vintage third quarter on top of that. But the net rating tonight told a story at a certain point, but is far from being an objective statistic, especially on an evening like this. Sophia, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've never really been one to really put too much thought into net ratings, because yeah, the plus minus shows up, but there are a lot more factors that go into how much a player is actually making a difference on the court that it doesn't really capture. Like you mentioned with Trayce Jackson-Davis, it doesn't necessarily get all the defense that he did against Zubac, all the rebounds that he got, or all the times he just set good screens and was good at moving the ball. So I think that is not a really good barometer on how well a player played necessarily. But like you mentioned, also, it makes sense where the starters, because they started off the game so poorly, obviously their plus minus is going to reflect that.
Yeah, it was all over the place tonight. I definitely don't take away from that a representation of the evening in terms of how it went down. So the turnovers, again, 19 total for the Warriors in this game, 6 for Draymond Green. If there's sound from him talking about that, we'll play it momentarily. But then there's another issue, and Damian LaRoche dropping $2 for this point, which is that Podziemski, Jonathan Kaminga, side note, missed his first 3 free throws, is shooting 64% from the line on the season. Kid, you got to improve that. Those last year, he was fine. He made close to 75% of his free throws last year. That's great. In his 3-point shooting this year, the percentage is going up. Last time I saw it entering tonight, it was hovering at around 35%. It's getting there after a horrible start, but the free throw situation is a concern. And then Trayce Jackson-Davis was also missing free throws. Those 3 combined, 2 of 9 from the charity stripe. And when you look at the game as a whole, the Golden State Warriors free throw wise, were 9 of 19. I'm like, sorry, I'm like, I'm having a hard time believing that, but that's what the box, dude, that's crazy. So the Clippers were 16 of 18 from the charity stripe. The Golden State Warriors were 9 of 19. Andrew Wiggins missed 2. He was 6 of 8. Draymond Green missed 1. He was 1 of 2. Trace Jackson Davis was 0 of 2. Kaminga was 1 of 4. Podziemski was 1 of 3. Moody didn't actually take any free throws tonight. So that was it. That was the extent. And you can make a whole other argument, which is that the Warriors just did not get to the free throw line enough tonight, which tells a story that they're not attacking enough. But Sophia, when I was growing up playing basketball, I loved free throw drills. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it was just a peaceful thing for me where it's just you in the basket. When I was playing in a game, like it never bothered me in terms of fan noise and stuff like that. From your experience, because I did not play D1 basketball in college, how do you improve the free throws? Like if you're a coach and you're looking at that stat, what do you tell your players? Are you telling them to spend an extra hour just putting them up? Or is it a time commitment thing? Is it a mental thing? Like what's your takeaway from that? Because the free throws were awful and they did make a difference in this game.
Yeah, there are definitely multiple components to like actually being able to make free throws in game. Because for some players, you could shoot as many as you want in practice and not be able to hit in a game, in which case it's mental. And for that, sometimes the remedy would be to, in practice, when you're shooting free throws, make it high pressure situations. So, like, you have to make 5 in a row, or you have to do a couple down and back, something like that. But that free throw line stat from this game could have affected so much. And especially, I feel like when you look at a player like Kaminga, when he is so good at drawing fouls, that's one of the best aspects of his game because of how explosive he is getting to the basket. He needs to be able to convert those into points if he wants to make sure he stays on the court.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It just sucks. And Nick the Greek, you nailed it, man. It just doesn't make sense that the Warriors are one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the NBA, but they can't hit free throws. It just does not make sense. I don't get it either. I feel like Stephen Curry is the only one you can count on. Klay Thompson used to be another one, but right now, with Klay gone, yeah, I don't know who you count on. I mean, outside of Steph, Sophia, can you think of anyone else on this team that I guess maybe Buddy Hield? I've never really looked at his free throw percentage, but who would you count on for free throws if it's not Steph? Is there anyone on this team besides Steph that you feel comfortable with in terms of free throw shooting?
Yeah, I would definitely probably throw Buddy Hield into there as well. But other players are just too hot and cold. Even I feel like when you talk about high free throw percentage, Draymond is actually shooting kind of decently this year from the 3. Not in a high volume, but he is kind of making some. So you would think that maybe his free throw numbers would go up a little bit. But I think that especially when you look at the amount of fouls that are drawn per game, Kaminga needs to be able to make more of his free throws.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just crazy that so many players on this team just cannot hit free throws. It's like across the board. I'm looking at the total numbers, and I apologize for my dog going absolutely crazy. So you're saving me a few times here. Buddy Hield on the season. I just want to pull up his stats because if it's not Buddy, who? I mean, and I guess D'Anthony Melton. I feel like this was a game where he was missed. Like D'Anthony Melton would have been playing a lot more minutes in this game. This is where he is missed. I sorry to be redundant there, and the fact that we have no clue what's going on with him. For some reason, the team is being hush hush about his sprained knee. I never like when teams do that. That's usually not a good sign. Buddy Hield on the season, by the way. 85.7%. Free throw shooter and 86% for his career. Okay, so we're safe with him, right? That's 2.
Yeah.
And Buddy, did not go to the free throw line at all tonight. And I don't know, would Lindy Waters, is he a good free throw shooter? Sophia, I'm sorry, I missed part of what you were saying earlier. So if you said this stuff already, please forgive me. But is Lindy good? Let me look that up. I'm trying to think of who's on the team you could actually like rely on for free throws. It's sad how low that number is. Lindy Waters is a career 82.8% free throw shooter. And this season, he's hit all of his free throws. I don't know how many attempts that means because did he go to the line tonight? He did not go to the line tonight either. So that's your Warriors free throw situation. It's not good. It's not good. There was a lot of stuff going on tonight. We talked about free throws. We talked about turnovers. We talked about rotations. And then in the chat, there's two other things that I think, at least I'm thinking, we can pinpoint as to what the Warriors did wrong that they should never do again. And Kamesha Q in the chat, excuse me, wrote that Moses Moody, I don't know what I don't know what this you wrote. I'll read out loud what they wrote exactly. Moody ball watch too much, have up a big three to Powell. I think what Kamisha is trying to say is that Moody is watching the ball too much because he was the defender for at least that last Norman Powell three. And that highlights a bigger issue, which I saw tonight. This was an issue all of last season. This was an issue that I thought the team had tightened up this year. Going into this game, the Warriors were one of the best defenses in the NBA, and that is perimeter shooting. The Clippers were lights out from the three-point line tonight. They were at nearly 54% at halftime, and that might have been even higher. I wrote it down. Well, I think it's in my notes. But for the game total, the LA Clippers shot 47.1% from the three-point line. That is absurd. That is an absurdly good number. Part of that you can just attribute to dumb luck, right? I mean, sometimes other teams just hit all sorts of shots, and there's really not much you could do. The Clippers at the half were at 52.9%. So that number did not go down that much. But I also saw this Warriors defense tonight not playing stick 'em like glue defense. And you need to do that to disrupt three-point shooting. So what I'm trying to say here is that, Kamisha, you have a point. Moses Moody failed on at least one possession, and tomorrow I'll look up the defensive matchup numbers. That's the NBA takes them a day or so to release that data, so you can actually see who failed with that assignment. But I agree. They were awful. Moses Moody is included in that. I don't know if maybe that's a subtle thing that was going on, which is why we saw the players get the minutes they got. But look, 3-point wise, Norman Powell, 5 of 6 from 3. Harden was 2 of 6. That's okay, but 33% is still going to hurt you. Derrick Jones Jr., 1 of 2. That's 50%. Amir Coffey, 2 of 6, 33%. Nick Batum, a player that the Warriors have wanted for years, and he just doesn't want anything to do with the Warriors. He likes the Clippers. 3 of 5. Terrence Mann, 2 of 6. And the Warriors did fail defensively in a spectacular fashion in that department. Side note, on Friday night's game, Cassidy Hubbard was doing the sidelines, and she revealed something interesting about Jerry Stackhouse. After every game, and this is going to be a fun game for us tonight, after every Warriors game, Jerry Stackhouse gives out a report card to every player and grades them based on their defense. And the first thing I thought of when I heard that was, I want to see this thing. Like, I'm very curious to know what he's particularly nitpicking. Like, does the report card include steal attempts? Is it staying in front of your defender, keeping your arms up? I want to see this list. Sophia, I'd love to know what you think is on this list. But my point is that Jerry Stackhouse is going to be giving a lot of F grades, I think, after this game tonight. Your thoughts on the perimeter D, which failed spectacularly in this game?
Yeah, I don't think that too many people are going to get good grades this game. I feel like when you look at the story of the game that the Warriors played against the Clippers earlier, it was majority like points in the paint, just pounding it into Zubats and just scoring in that way. So I feel like the Warriors almost overcompensated in that point and really tried to pack it in, and it ended up backfiring because then every time someone would drive to the basket, they would, because they're so packed in, that kick out to get to the three, they're sprinting out and they're able to kind of contest, but not really get there in time for the amount of how well the Clippers were shooting this game. And I just think that part of that has to do with, one, staying in front of your man so that they're not able to get downhill and touch the paint in the first place. And kind of like with that ball watching comment earlier, just not getting completely turned when you know you have a man to guard. And that's where when we have longer players that are out there playing on the perimeter, they can kind of jab in and stunt and prevent the drive and then still be able to recover back out to their man, which didn't really happen too much with just the amount of what seemed like wide open shots this game.
Totally wide open. You're absolutely right. Key 17 in the chat wanted to jump in. If I just posted the link, if anyone wants to join Sophia and I, you're welcome to. Here on Golden Days, it's a Monday night live edition where the Warriors unfortunately dropped their third game of the season, 102-99 to the Clippers. I am grateful that they showed some fight at the end there and made it close. But again, just so. The fact that the Warriors only scored 99 points, I thought that was a little concerning. It does show that the Clippers play good defense, and as Jill Espina in the chat, I think, nailed in a very astute fashion that this was just a battle between two solid defenses, two teams that do mirror each other aesthetically. A lot of wings, although the Clippers do have a Zubac, which the Warriors don't have, but Trace Jackson-Davis, I thought, played spectacular tonight, all things considered. It just wasn't enough. But what is in your opinion, is it just the free throws that prevented the Warriors from cracking the 100-point barrier? I guess what I'm trying to say, Sophia, is when the Warriors failed to score 100 points, that's glaring. This is a notoriously potent offense in the NBA, and the Clippers just shut them down. Like what do you pinpoint for that? Is it a lot of reasons? Is there anything specific that stuck out to you? That should not be happening, is what I'm trying to say. 99 points.
It shouldn't. I mean, Steph had an off night kind of up until the second half. I feel like his slow start contributed to a lot of the Warriors' offensive woes. I mean, the Clippers are coached by Ty Lue. He's had to make a lot of adjustments against Steph Curry in high-pressure situations as well. But kind of other players like Lindy Waters, like Buddy Hield, that are more of a threat on the three-point line, they didn't really perform as well tonight. And even a player like a Kyle Anderson, who can sometimes show out on offense a little bit, or at least provide some spark, because he does a really good job at facilitating and being that point forward on the floor. We didn't see as much of him tonight as well, but just overall, it felt like the Warriors, aside from kind of that second half when they were able to pick it back up, the starters just kind of got off to a slow start because Steph did. And then that bench unit that came in just didn't have that same spark as usual as well. Kind of contributing more to, or showcasing more of Brandon Podziemski's woes and how he's struggled offensively recently. Kaminga, he was able to perform well, but again, we talked about those missed free throws. And then, like I mentioned as well, Buddy Hield, he needs to make sure he knocks down some of those threes because he gets a lot of them up per game.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. It's just frustrating. Stephen Curry was triple teamed on his final shot attempt. That entire scenario was frenetic. I thought the officiating was just atrocious tonight. Here's what I have in my notes. There was one play where James Harden literally pushed off Lindy Waters. Like it was the broadcasters called it out. I posted the video of it on, I think, both of my social media channels, where Harden you could see him extending the arm. You see Lindy Waters flailing back, and that play, I think, resulted in a three-pointer. There was the situation where the end of game where the ball was clearly out of bounds, and the refs were just like, whoops, oh well, we'll just keep on playing, which was insane. But the Stephen Curry part of this, and I know I sound like a broken record discussing the fact that Stephen Curry is egregiously disrespected by the NBA and its officials, given how and the evidence comes from the free throw attempts. Sophia, can you guess how many free throws Stephen Curry got tonight? Don't look. Guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking. I can't even remember if I really saw him go to the line. So it's like maybe either zero once or two times he went to the line.
Your first guess was correct. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. And he gets hit every game. There's contact on almost every drive. And the fact that he had 0 free throw attempts in this game, still finished the game with 26 points, still finished the game shooting nearly 50% from the field, 10 of 21, 6 of 15 from deep. He rebounded, I think, after the first half. He was 2 of 7 from deep in the first half. Okay, so that's not terrible, not great, but 0 free throw attempts. And that's egregious to me. I thought the officiating tonight as a whole was egregious. And I'm trying to see if there's any other play that I highlighted as an example of the refs just completely blowing it. And I mentioned that Harden push off on Lindy Waters. It resulted in a Chris Dunn 3-pointer, which should have never been allowed. That was one of many things we can count as being a difference in this game. It's awful. It's awful. And tonight was it was worse than usual, I thought. And we're going to talk about the last game as well, because the end of game Draymond incident that happened so late in the game that, excuse me, after the post-game show on Friday night, we didn't really talk about it that much because I didn't even see what had happened until like the next day. But for tonight's game, I mean, when I played, I've gotten kicked out of games. I was not shy. I'm guessing no one's surprised by that. Were you vocal? Were you demonstrative with officials? And what was your reaction to tonight's just complete butchering by these officials, resulting in 0 Stephen Curry free throws? Absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah, I really wasn't that. I was vocal, but I don't think I've ever gotten a technical or never ejected from games before. But definitely when it came to refereeing, I was always, there is definitely a lot of moments of frustration. But tonight, I feel like when you talk about Steph specifically and his free throws, he's one of the only players in the league where every single year you look at the leading scorers and points per games, and he's the only one that doesn't have that scores his points off not on free throws. Other players like a Joel Embiid last year, or like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, a lot of their percentage of their total scoring is free throws. And Steph is just one of those people that is never in the conversation of actually going to the line a lot of times per game. And it's not like he's not driving to the paint, because he gets a lot of looks inside. I think maybe it's almost something where he's too good at using his body and able to shift his defender's momentum and score around the rim, that it just doesn't look like fouls, even though there's still clearly contact.
Do you like this idea that comes courtesy of Key 17 in the chat? Make them pay fines for missing free throws. I've heard that idea before with NBA players. And just adding to that, there's also people you can hire. I don't know, Rick Barry it comes to mind, one of the greatest ever to do it, and he would happily come and do it probably for free for the Warriors. Any other gimmicky or any gimmicks or any tactics besides making them pay for missed free throws you could think of, Sophia? Is that even a good idea to you, or do you think that would not fly?
I feel like it could work. It definitely is going to have to depend on the fine, because NBA contracts these days are insane. But I know for us also, sometimes when we would shoot as a team under a certain free throw percentage, everyone had to run. I don't know how much you can really tell an NBA player to run like a 17 or like some suicides, but that was always the philosophy kind of in the teams that I've been a part when we've struggled from the free throw line.
That's a good philosophy. I'm guessing with professional players might even work more, because you don't stop hating running as you get older. It's actually the opposite. And Carson, yes, I will get to you. Actually, I was going to get to you next, sir, because you wrote in the chat, I've dropped the $1.99 for my super chat. And yes, we will address it and read it. And Carson, oh no, not that one. I think you did a second one. It's right here. Carson Taylor dropping a $1.99 to discuss after the Warriors' third loss of the season. Side note, the Warriors are still tied atop the Western Conference. In terms of losses, I think they're a half game behind the OKC Thunder, but they both have 3 losses. But Carson Taylor is going to the trade machine, baby. And he's bringing up Brandon Podziemski, who I do want to talk about in just a minute here. Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II, and a first for Angel Reese's boyfriend. Is it? No, actually, she's dating Jalen Duren. I apologize. For Jabari Smith of the Rockets, I would prefer Jalen Duren. That's what I was thinking of when you said that. Jabari Smith Jr., I wouldn't hate it. The kid can hit threes. He gives you size. But I think the bigger point here is, Sophia, is it too soon to start talking trades after the Warriors' third loss? Or do you consider this an anomaly and keep the course going? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's too soon for the trade talks, especially for Jabari Smith. Especially, I think when you look at Brandon Podziemski in that projected trade, that's someone who the Warriors were very adamant about keeping this past offseason. So I will be shocked if they didn't continuously work with him in order to try to get him better and get him out of this little slump that he's in. And two, I would be shocked if they actually traded Podziemski.
Well, and just for the sake of argument, would you, let's say hypothetically, you're the GM, would you make this trade? And again, the trade that Carson's proposing is Brandon Podziemski, Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II, and 1 first-round pick for Jabari Smith Jr. of the Houston Rockets. Would you make that trade?
I don't think I would make it.
You would say no to that?
I don't think I would make that one.
What's your reasoning?
I just think that right now, those pieces still have proven what they can do, and the team they're still doing solid. I mean, like we just said, they're top of the Western Conference, so they're still doing solid. And I'm going back to just the fact about that. If the Warriors are going to make a trade, they need to get a big center.
And Carson, just and first of all, B40 in the chat bringing up an old Paul George interview where he was talking about Kawhi Leonard, and the quote is, "I'm not running." Like, yeah, no one, very few people like to actually run and run hard. I know some people out there are psychopaths who just, that's running is their thing, and more power to you. But yeah, for the majority of the people out there, I don't think they're into it. But again, going back to Carson's trade, I would do it in a second, Carson. I would absolutely pull that lever and green light the deal. I think if you add Jabari Smith Jr. to this team, here's why I love this trade, is because you're giving up 3 assets that the Warriors already have replacements for. Brandon Podziemski, we could talk about him in just a second because he has not been playing well lately. And considering that the Warriors, if reports are true, turned down a lot of potential trade proposals and opportunities to keep him. They value him tremendously, and maybe rightfully so. We'll talk about that in just a minute here. But you're talking Podziemski, Andrew Wiggins, replaceable. GP2, I already want to see him on the bench as your 13th guy. Sign me up. Jabari Smith, I think, would be a game changer. You're talking about a stretch 5 who has some strength. Sign me up, please. But again, I'm not a very sentimental person. So for me, the emotional attachments, I can easily sever. And I know that's different for each person, but I would do it. I don't know, Carson, if you would. I mean, you proposed it, but I'm guessing you would. I like it. But it brings up a bigger issue, which is what we were talking about, Brandon Podziemski, and his stat line tonight. Oh boy. I honest to God, did not see his stat line until just the second. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Sophia. He played 15 minutes, 37 seconds. Eye test wise, he looked good. He grabbed that one pivotal rebound late in the game, which was an offensive board. I just, that sticks out to me for some reason. But when I'm looking at the stat sheet, 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from deep. He had one trip to the free throw line. I remember that part vividly. And he had 3 free throws, only made 1 of them. And that 1 free throw was the only point of the game. Did have 5 rebounds, did have 2 assists. There's a soundbite that I'd like to play. Do you want to hear the soundbite first, Sophia, or do you want to talk about? Do you want to share your reaction to Pods' performance tonight, because it was not good? I guess just say that first. What was your reaction to Pods tonight?
Yeah, I don't know. Even though he's out of the mask now, it still seems like something is off. He's not like his usual self. Yes, he's kind of hustling and doing all those little things that we've known him to do, but we've also known him to produce offensively more in the past as well, which he's just not being very productive right now, especially with his outside shot, which is a big point of emphasis kind of coming into this season, because he was going to be another scoring threat to make up the loss of Klay Thompson.
Yeah. Here's the soundbite. This is courtesy of Anthony Slater, and he got this. He interviewed, along with other reporters, Podziemski during this morning's shoot-around in LA. And the reason why I thought this was a noteworthy attribution and why we're going to play this on the show right now is because Podziemski talked about the illness that kept him out of a game and a half. I think it was he did not come back in the second half of a game, or he came back for a second and then left because he was experiencing dizziness. We never got a clear answer on that. So here is Brandon Podziemski talking to the press earlier today. And this is, again, courtesy of Anthony Slater. And Pods talks about a lot of things, including his shot and the weird illness that kept him out of a game and change.
How does your game feel just overall?
Feels good. I mean, the last 3 games I've been, minus in the plus-minus category, which is unlike myself. But I think last game compared to the previous 2, just felt like myself out there playing with energy. The numbers, I think, will always shake out to whatever they're going to be, and I think I'll get to where I want to be. Obviously, we're only, 12 games in the season, so I'm not really concerned about that. But just bringing effort and energy is what I hang my hat on.
Steve mentioned, I think, the 2 games prior that you were talking about, an indecisiveness that he hadn't seen from you in a while, and then an aggressiveness in the last game. I mean, what's that balance been like?
Yeah, I think those two games, OKC and Dallas, I think kind of were carryovers of the fatigue I was feeling from the road trip, and I had to sit out. So I think there was a little carryover from that. But I think we talked, me and Steve, me and Mike, we talked, and just come out and be myself is the best version of me, and not trying to play, for everybody else, but understand like what I bring to the table and how positive that it impacts our team.
You mentioned the fatigue. I mean, did you kind of figure out what happened on the road trip? Like what led to that?
No, we didn't figure it out. We're still actually trying to figure it out right now. But I mean, I played well on when did we just play? Friday. And I felt like my energy was good. So as long as that continues, that's all I really care about.
How does your game feel?
Sorry about that. And there we go. And I guess I was wondering where that noise was coming from. It was from that interview. Did you wonder that too? I was like, is that my house? Your reaction, Sophia. Brandon covered a lot of topics there, including the fact that he doesn't know what caused the dizziness, which is a little alarming. I never like hearing that an ailment is mysterious. Usually want to find the cause of it. Your reaction, Sophia.
Yeah, just him talking about that they're still actively trying to figure out what that is, meaning that it could still kind of actively be affecting him. Like you said, it's a little concerning, especially how I felt like tonight he didn't necessarily look like himself. I mentioned earlier about some of the overpassing that I felt like the Warriors had in that second unit, especially. And Podziemski was a bit of a part of that. He almost looked unsure in his offensive capabilities and his scoring abilities. And instead it was just trying to give it to someone else instead of just taking it himself, contributing to just not really kind of seeming like his usual self.
Agreed. Sophie, are you ready for a guest, a member of our beloved audience to join us? All right, here's a Key 17. Obviously, please be respectful. It goes without saying. Sorry for saying it, but just want to play it safe. Key 17. What is your real name, first of all? And welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Kai. Kai.
Oh, Kai. Well, that alone, I'm happy you came on for, so I know how to properly enunciate your name. Nice to meet you in person. Let me fix this layout here so at least my head is not. There we go. Kai, I apologize. Nice to formally meet you. Thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for always being a part of the audience.
I love this show. I mean, at the end of the games, I turn to this show first and foremost. Reason, I don't always disagree with you, Cyrus, but one thing I can say is that you're consistent.
Thank
You're
you. I
very.
hope that's a good thing. I hope that's a good thing.
You're very consistent, Sophia. I like your takes as well. Very, very much. No, there
And
are
look,
a few
and
things
Ty,
that.
sorry to interrupt you, but just real fast, and this goes for everyone. We don't have to agree on everything. I understand like 95% of what is said on this show is entirely subjective. I do hope that the opinions are educated. That's my goal. But the point is, it's fine. It's fine if we don't agree on everything. But we're all human beings, and we can be civil and still get along. And I'm just stoked that you're here, Kai. And thank you for giving me a second there to explain that. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. One thing I'm sure we are all gonna agree on here is if you allow the other team to shoot 47% from three while you're shooting 47% from the free throw line, you're not gonna win many games like that.
That's fair.
You're not gonna win games like that. That's where we lost that game. You cannot be shooting 47% from the free throw line.
That's bad. That's bad. But even if they made, like, let's say hypothetically they made all their free throws, they do win the game, but they're still scoring barely over 100 points. I mean, their offense was still it was flat tonight. Would you agree with that?
The offense was very flat, but I think one thing that Kurt does that I cannot stand. Jonathan Kaminga is a rhythm player. When he's in rhythm, it's the same thing with Trace. When he's in rhythm, when you see Trace Jackson Davis reel off 6 points in a row, please don't take him out.
That happened. I saw that tonight.
Kaminga.
I'm with you. Did you notice that tonight? Because I thought I saw that tonight.
I noticed that tonight. When Kaminga is not playing well, you can tell. And when you see him go off and he's cutting into the defense and he's getting his layups and he's getting to the free throw line, don't take him out. He's 22 years old. He's not going to get tired and drop dead. Keep him in there.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you there. And just to remind people, Jonathan Kaminga tonight, 19 minutes and 5 seconds, well below his season average. I don't understand why that happened either. He's been finishing game, and that's been resulting in success. You don't have them finish tonight, and they lose. Could be a coincidence. Yeah. I don't like it. I'm with you.
And one last thing. On the Gary Payton being in there, I can understand why Gary Payton got in there, and I can understand why he got stuck. I don't think it was Kerr's intention for him to be in there for that last, but he got in there and he got that steal, and Kerr didn't want to take the timeout because he didn't want them to set the defense. So Payton got stuck in there, and it's just unfortunate that that last three fell to the worst person that he could have fallen to. The ball was going to Lindy. I think Gary Payton that shot from Lindy.
Yeah, and Steph was triple teamed. He just wanted to get it in anybody's hands, and it was almost like Gary Payton for a second didn't know what to do. Like he got the ball, was like, I'm not supposed to have this, and the clock was up. But my frustrations with that represented the whole game. GP2 for some reason has just been getting the benefit of the doubt from this coaching staff. And again, if this was the GP2 of 3 years ago, who was as close to a lockdown defender as you were ever going to find. The Gary Payton II of 2021-2022 was one of the greatest defenders in the history of the NBA. That one season, you could put up with anybody, I thought. It was exemplary, dude. Nobody wanted any piece of him offensively.
I think 2022 Gary Payton is the best open floor defender I've ever seen in my life.
It was incredible. It was incredible. And sadly, and it is sad to me, that's not him this year. And I don't know if he's just more reserved because of all the injuries. And that's what happens, dude. Eventually you get tired of getting hurt. Like Sophia, you blew out your ACL. I'm guessing you don't want to go through that again, right? Like the rehab, the pain, and it gets old. It gets old getting hurt. That's part of why when you age, you kind of want to move on because eventually the injuries are tiresome. Like I've broken so many bones in my body. I used to be a sponsored snowboarder, and I had to stop. It got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to live in a cast anymore. It's a pain in the ass. It's uncomfortable. I would rather just live my life with injury-free, pain-free. And part of me wonders if that's what happened to GP2 because he kept having those abdomen injuries, like those obliques and the groin. And dude, that's got to be some serious shit that he had to be dealing with there. So I could understand it, but he's not the same. Yeah, and it's just unfortunate.
And I tell you what, some of the minutes that I think Kaminga should have gotten tonight, and I know that Wiggins had 22 points, but Wiggins' points felt like empty calories to me. Like I feel like
And he missed that layup at the end. Remember, I don't know if you remember that putback.
I feel like Kaminga was hurting them more than Wiggins was hurting them.
Yeah.
The Clippers were happy to have Wiggins out there instead of Kaminga. Don't give them what they want. Give them exactly what they don't want. And they didn't want to see Kaminga tonight.
And see, there's people in the chat saying like that's disrespectful to GP2, and it's like I don't mean to be, but that's part of professional sports. Is you eventually start to decline, and you have people again like morons like me with the two thumbs pointed his way, calling him out because that's my job is to be a total a-hole every once in a while, and I don't like doing it, but it's part of the gig. It's like I'm not authentic if I'm not calling these players out when there's flaws that start to emerge. And GP2, I'm sorry. If you don't agree with it, that's okay. That's fine, right? I mean, we talked about this a moment ago. Like, we will have our disagreements. But from my observation skills, and I watch this as close as anyone, GP2 is not the same guy. People are blowing past him when they didn't used to do that just 2 years ago. And he used to have that like solid corner three, and that's not falling anymore, man. And so I see that, and I just see the rest of the talent on this bench. And I don't mean to disrespect GP2, man. I love the guy personally, but to me, in professional sports, this is not a game of feelings at this stage. It's all about performance and results and who's the best out there. And for me, I would rather give those minutes to Moses Moody personally, but that's just me. And it just sucks, man, that GP2 is just not the same. But I don't know. I digress. Kai, I'm just really stoked you came on, man. It's nice to meet you. Any final thoughts, Sophia? Sophia, I feel like you haven't said a word here. Any thoughts on your end?
No, just in terms of Gary Payton, yes, it's like we can acknowledge that he was an insanely talented defender, but with age, with injuries, there's a decline, and that happens. And I feel like it's not necessarily mean to acknowledge that because I mean you can still see him. It's not like he's just a pigeon. He's just like a pond cone that players drive by all the time now. But I think that it's just you can't hold him to that same standard that he used to be at, which is fair. Just don't think he's that player and give his minutes to someone else that that could have helped the Warriors win this past game.
And he's making $11 million a year, folks. So he got paid. He's doing okay. All right. Like, and I don't want him to go anywhere either. But it's just, again, it's the entire reason he got that check, that 3-year deal from the Trailblazers, that the Warriors regrettably did not give him themselves. I do feel like if Joe Lacob had to take that back, he would. Like, they should have paid him. Like, the Warriors could have kept him, and they didn't because of money, and it was a bad decision, but that's hindsight for you. But GP2 got that contract largely because of who he was as a defensive player. His offense is not the reason that he gets minutes. It's because he is an elite defender. And I'm not saying he's a bad defender now, but what I am saying is there are players on this team like a Moses Moody who do not give you a letdown per se, with tonight maybe possibly excluded because he was standing there. I saw that vividly. He played poor perimeter defense tonight. He was part of the problem. And I say that because Norman Powell was wide open, and you saw Moses Moody just looking at him like that's on me. I messed up, and he did. He made a mistake, but that happens. Anyways, whatever. We can.
My final thoughts. I don't like Norman Powell. I can't stand that guy.
He is a villain. He's becoming a villain to the Warriors. Let me ask you guys this. Kai, before you go, while I have you here, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Way earlier in the show, B40 in the chat wrote, bruh. And then after that part, they had zero energy tonight. I noticed that too. And what really stuck out, at least to me, is that as Mitchell and Ness wrote, they had 2 days rest. There is no damn excuse for this, which makes me wonder, given these are humans and they're not like robots who are just on a perfect regimen and a perfect schedule. They do like to have fun. They are in LA. Draymond Green had 6 turnovers. He's usually leading the party machine. And it makes me wonder, Sophia, Kai, do you think the Warriors maybe had some fun last night? Kai, I'll start with you.
It looked like it. They played like that.
They did, right? They played like it. Like if you told me that actually is what happened, I'd believe it. It's believable. It's crazy, but it's true. Sophia, what are your thoughts? Yeah, and I'm sure, Sophia, you've heard a lot of stories, given you grew up in the NBA. What are your thoughts on that wild but possibly real theory?
Yeah, and I even think kind of back to the Grizzlies game where a lot of the bench players got the majority of the minutes that game. I mean, Steph, he didn't even play the fourth. So maybe it's just like they got too comfortable after that kind of impressive win, aside from the Grizzlies coming back a little bit at the end. But sometimes too much rest isn't good. Like you guys said, sometimes they have too much free time. And yeah, exactly.
All right, Kai, any final thoughts before
I go? In a game like this, could Draymond had, because Kerr's not gonna bench him, like
No.
pull him out. But could Draymond have just raised his hand and say, you know what, coach, put JK in. I'm not feeling it tonight. Put JK in there. I mean,
and in case people forgot, wasn't it the Clippers game, the last one where Dre did get benched the final 8 minutes?
yes,
I can't
was
remember
that Clippers game that we lost, the last for the season.
So I mean, you know, they've shown that they're willing to do it. This was not Dre's night. It was a triple single. You never like to see that, but he was just he was one of many players that had an issue.
All right,
Kai,
guys,
such a
thanks
pleasure
for
to meet
having
you,
me
man.
on, man. And I'm always here. I'm always in the chat, Cyrus.
Thank you. I know. I see it, and I respect it. And thank you. It's nice to finally meet you, at least virtually. It was a pleasure. Have a good night, Kai. That was fun, Sophia, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you know what? I'm half Jamaican, so whenever I hear a little Caribbean accent, it always brings me back to being around family.
Is that what that accent was, you think? Was it Jamaican?
It was definitely Caribbean. I'm not sure which exact island, but
I love it.
in general, I was able to spot it.
Dude, we're all about the island vibes here. There's no doubt about that. I want to see real fast. And really quickly here, because a couple people want to talk have brought up this shirt. This is a sweatshirt that I wear when it's really cold, like tonight, and we're about to get a big storm hitting Northern California, and it's supposed to be like a doozy, where there might be flooding and stuff like that. And I live in an area. I live in the forest. I do, and I love it. But the negative is at times we have power outages. So if for any reason we don't have a show for a few days, just follow me on social media. I'll post if a lack of power is the issue. But the point is, I bring up this shirt because for anyone wondering, this dog is my former dog, my last bulldog. This was a custom logo as part of the surf shop I used to own in San Francisco. I could re-release it if there's a demand for it. Believe actually makes apparel, and they've told me they work with me if ever want to release like shirts or sweatshirts or anything like that. But that's the story behind this, in case you're ever wondering. This is my former dog, Indiana, aka Indy, and he's in a barrel. And this was an old logo for my surf shop. Sophia, is there anything we have not covered yet before as we start to wrap it up?
I don't think there's too much that we haven't covered. We kind of touched on a lot of the discourse from this game, I feel like, and why the Warriors dropped this one.
Here's the good news, and I think Jill Espina wrote this in the chat earlier, but I'm sorry for not highlighting it. The Warriors did not play a good game of basketball, and they were missing quite a few people. Among them, DeAnthony Melton, who I think his absence was felt tonight. They could have used exactly his skill set. He makes GP2 particularly dispensable, but he also offensively brings it too. He was missed, and I just hope the knee's okay, because we still haven't really gotten much of an update on that. I'm getting more and more curious about it, because again, when teams try to hide those kinds of things, it's a little concerning for me. Sophia, would you agree with that assessment, or do you think it doesn't matter at all if the team is being transparent or not transparent about an injury? Because from my experience, when they're not being transparent, usually there's something there. Not always the case, but I raise my eyebrows a little bit when the team's being secretive. Like, is that your experience too, or do you think it's case by case?
Yeah, I would say that I kind of get more intrigued, either in the fact that they could kind of not be wanting to say something because it could potentially be severe, or they're just trying to get as much information as possible and just run a lot of tests, which I feel like, again, when we talk about age, as NBA players get older, sometimes those kind of nagging things and injuries that they experience get a little bit more complicated than just ankle sprain, or it was this, or it was this, just like clear cut. Sometimes it gets a little bit more complicated. So it's kind of just something to definitely keep an eye on, that, like you said, it's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser situation.
Yeah, it is. And I just really hope he's okay. And we're going to finish up with the scoreboard here in just a minute. A couple things I wanted to point out. Entering tonight's game, and I do think the Warriors added to this. And let me just confirm that. Yeah, so the Warriors outscored the Clippers in the third quarter tonight, 27-19. And a piece of information which I do think is relevant is that in every year that the Warriors won the championship, they led the entire NBA in third quarter differential, meaning the points for, the points against. So you're like your net rating for offense versus defense, what the difference is. And this year is no exception. And I keep a very close eye on this stat because in every season where the Warriors aren't leading in this category, you see a correlation there. Case in point, the last 2 years, which were a bit of a disappointment, the Warriors were not leaders. They were actually middle of the pack in terms of third quarter differential. And that usually represents the adjustments the team is making at the half, the fight in a team. Because if you're losing at the half, the second half and the third quarter more specifically is when you're coming out like gangbusters, ready to correct those mistakes, ready to come back with force. And the Warriors this year, and this tonight just added to this, are first in the NBA in third quarter differential at plus 6.5. And so far, it's not even close. The next closest team, I forgot who it was, is like plus 4.4, something like that. So the point is, that's good news. And again, every single year they've won the championship, they were first in the NBA in third quarter differential. Sophia, from your experience as a player, what goes on at the half? Because some people say that, and Steve Kerr's talked about this, right? He sometimes tries to diminish these third quarter results. He usually says there just isn't much time to give these big speeches or to have these big adjustments. But you do see it. You do see changes in approach and strategy. Like when you were playing at San Jose State, did your coach sometimes instill these big adjustments at half, or was it just a sit down, cool off moment? Like what's your takeaway from the Warriors being this third quarter team again?
No, I definitely think that it is due to adjustments that are being made. Especially, it's one thing when you're telling a player, come on, we need to pick it up on defense. It's one thing just saying that, but it's another thing saying James Harden is hunting to get the switch on Steph, so we're going to try to blow that up and prevent that. Like a very tangible thing to be able to do. So I think that those adjustments have definitely kind of contributed, and especially when you talk about adjustments, a lot of those can be defensive. We mentioned Jerry Stackhouse,
yes,
and kind of what he's been able to do in revamping the Warriors defense. But it's been fun to see the resurgence of the signature Warriors third quarter. I mean, in the past, we've seen the type of onslaught that can bring about, and it's on a good trend right now. Hopefully it can be like that in an even bigger way this season as well.
Yeah. And some of the notes I have in this game, I just want to get through them because I do think they're a little relevant. I noticed at the beginning of this game, and maybe this is what separates the Clippers from most other teams the Warriors are playing and why they're so difficult, is the Clippers don't have a player on their roster that the Warriors can hide Stephen Curry on. And what I mean by that is, and this is not to diminish Stephen Curry as a defender at all. Like I'm actually one of his staunchest defenders, no pun intended, as a defensive player. With that said, usually when the Warriors play another team, excuse me, usually not all five players on the team are lethal offensive players. Like you can usually hide Steph on someone where you don't need him to be like this lockdown type defensive player where the pressure isn't placed on Steph to play really hard defense throughout. The Clippers don't give you that luxury. You can't afford to take possessions off with them. When the Clippers were on the court, Stephen Curry was guarding Norman Powell for a lot of this game, just to give you an idea of how big the Clippers are, even though I don't know if they're big in a traditional sense, but I mean, James Harden's their point guard. He is a big, and yes, big, rotund as well. But he's a chubby boy, but he's big. He's like 6'5", and he's their point guard. And Norman Powell is who Stephen Curry had to guard. And I do think there is some alignment there, some correlation there between in terms of why the Warriors maybe struggle a little more with this team. Is any thoughts on that? Is there any truth to that from your perspective, Sophia?
I definitely do kind of agree with you in that they tend to hide stuff on those players that are a little bit more non-impactful on offense. And against a Norman Powell, I mean, he burned the Warriors from the 3, but he's also tall. He was able to get to the paint kind of easily as well. So it was definitely something that they saw that and exploited it throughout the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice quote, by the way, from Katie M in the chat saying, as they say in the stock market, you're either winning or you're learning. That's a good approach, especially for success. So anyway, so that stuck out to me in terms of this Clippers team and why they're unique versus most other teams that the Warriors play. And then Jill, I do think you're right as well that the fact that the Warriors lost by just 3 does mean that there was some luck involved in this, and it's why I'm not in no way, shape, or form hitting a panic button. There's a few people in the chat saying that because of this game, the Warriors are not title contenders. I am not at all subscribing to that line of reasoning. This game, the Clippers clearly are a nuisance for the Warriors. The way they're constructed, they present problems that no one else has presented so far. And I think a part of that is the fact that they're deep like the Warriors. They're long like the Warriors. They have a hell of a lot of scores on this team like the Warriors in terms of like a 1 through 10 roster approach. Another thing that stuck out to me, Sophia, and this is much more innocuous in terms of basketball analysis because it has nothing to do with basketball analysis. It has to do with the fact that the Clippers games start at 7:30 p.m. every night. That seems late to me. The NBA games typically start at 7. Someone told me that the Warriors, when they played at Oracle, used to tip off at 7:30. I can't remember if that's true or not, but I do know that most NBA games, the latest ones start at 7 p.m. Pacific time. The Clippers are starting games, and I've noticed this throughout the season at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. That is late. Have you noticed that? And is there any, does anyone in the chat know the reasoning for that? Because 7:30 is late. I mean, people have families, people have lives. Like the fact that we're it's 11:22 right now, we're still on the air. A lot of that is because of how late this game was. Your thoughts on that, Sophia?
Yeah, I don't know what the reason for that could honestly be, but I mean, we know how Steve Ballmer runs the team and kind of a lot of the little tricks that he's been implementing to try to get this team to have more success. I had a thought as you were talking as well, just in terms of the free throw percentage this game. I'm honestly wondering if it had anything to do with the Clippers arena and how they have that the wall, I think they call it, where they try to replicate in a college arena with all the fans doing with the signs and stuff. Maybe that could potentially have had something to do with it.
It is a little surprising. This was the Warriors' first game at Intuit, and our 18 minutes into the show is the first time anyone's brought that up. That's a good point. Maybe just a coincidence. Who knows? But they do got that. They do have that wall. They're starting games at 7:30. Those Clippers are funky, starting with Steve Ballmer. SG Sports Talk channel, who's saying hi to you, Sophia, also adding, you were great on the SJSU girls basketball team, women's basketball team, just to be more precise. But yeah, there you go. Some props. I never watched you play, Sophia, and I regret that. What was your career scoring average? And were you more of a distributor or more of a scorer?
Oh, I was point guard, so definitely more of a distributor. And it's okay that you didn't watch much because I did not play much. I had 2 ACLs. So
Ooh.
I was in
Ooh.
on the training table more than the actual basketball court in my college career, which is okay.
Shyam Natarjan, I hope I pronounced that correctly, saying that when the Warriors were in Oracle, the game started at 7:30. That is interesting. I know that's a weird, peculiar thing, but I'm intrigued by that. Elsewhere in my notes, let me see if there's anything else that stuck out. And again, we talked about this already, but the fact that the Warriors had 13 turnovers just in the first half. They only scored 45 points offensively at the end of the first half. And yet the Clippers only led by 11. Like, I felt like this first game could have been blown out and over with. And the fact that the Warriors stayed in this throughout was a testament to their depth and the fact that they are fighting. Like, they're not throwing games. And I saw something similar. I remember in the Cleveland game where they were getting their butts kicked at the half. I think they were losing by like 41 at one point, and they crawled back. They cut that lead down to like 18 or 16 before the Cavaliers put it away. But the fact that this team has fight in them, I think that's a positive, because a lot of teams don't, and that sometimes is what separates the good teams from the champions. So I like seeing that. I don't know if you noticed that as well, but it stuck out to me. One last thing to bring up, and then we'll go through the scores and then call it a night, was Jonathan Kaminga, who, again, 19 minutes, that is just not enough. I don't understand the logic behind that. But what I remember, and I wanted to point it out in the chat or in the show, is he had a beautiful drive in this game where he attacked Zubac, who's much bigger than him, and he finished with a left. And I bring that up because I haven't talked about this in a while, but I think it's important. Kaminga is literally ambidextrous. He's as good with his left as with his right. And I understand that anybody at this level of the game should be, in theory, as good with both sides. But James Harden, for example, what the defensive playbook for him is to force him to go right. He's left-handed, and he's just not as good going right as he is left. There's data that supports that. And most players have that weakness. Stephen Curry does not. Jonathan Kaminga does not. And I feel like that's going to go a long ways towards him eventually becoming a fantastic player in this league. But it was just one play, but it just reminded me that more people should be aware of that he is ambidextrous and is as good with his left as his right. And that finish was beautiful. I don't know if you remember that play or not, Sophia, but it stuck out to me big time. Anything else, Sophia? Any final thoughts on the game?
No, kind of just what you said about Kaminga, the fact that he is able to go both ways, left and right. I feel like, especially since he is a driver, defenders just have to play him straight up, which at that point he has a very large speed and athleticism advantage over a lot of his opponents. So definitely kind of something to keep watching in the future. Big time.
Absolutely right. And last but not least for this game, and we've talked about this before as well, but I have to bring it up again. These damn officials. I really, really do believe fervently that if these officials had called a fair game tonight, the Warriors win. It was just ridiculous what was going on here. And this happens way too often. I personally can't wait for the robots to take over so that we can actually have objective calls in a game, but I digress. All right, let's go to the rest of the game real fast, going around the NBA scoreboard for this Monday, November 18th. I can't believe it's the 18th already. God damn. That means, so next week is Thanksgiving? Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. And I just learned today that the NBA does not play on Thanksgiving. I actually was not aware of that until just today. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I did not. Did you know that, Sophia, until I just said that right now?
I did, because I'm not that big of a football fan, so whenever it's Thanksgiving, I want to turn on the TV and watch a game, and football is my only option. I'm like, why are there no NBA games on? So I know that from like a bad standpoint, because I wish there were NBA games.
Yeah. And Carson Taylor with one more super chat. I apologize. Good point. Carson Taylor in the chat actually had 2 chats. I apologize. Carson writes that there's a difference between the cup games and the regular season. That's interesting. So I think what Carson is implying here is that when the Warriors are playing these non-cup games, that the energy level, that the motivation is not quite at the same level, sorry to be redundant, as these non-cup games. Did you notice that, Sophia? I think that's an interesting point. I don't know if it's true, at least not with the Warriors, but it's interesting. It is a point. It's a take.
Yeah.
I like
And
it.
you know what? I think that right now there's a little bit of a small sample size, but I think in general, honestly, we've seen the success of these NBA Cup games and how competitive they've been, and just kind of a really great idea by Adam Silver to take that European style and bring it over here to America.
Yeah, absolutely. Nato Santo in the chat is saying that Kaminga's problem is his defensive stance. I don't agree with that, but okay. I think he's fine defensively. I think he's fantastic defensively. And then Carson Taylor, I don't know, what, any thoughts on that, Sophia?
I don't think I think it's one of those things where because of how athletic he is, he could definitely really be that lockdown defender, but he's not a defensive liability, I would say.
Fair, that's very fair. And he actually said this season that one of his personal goals is to make an all defensive team, which is a good thing to hear from a player. I don't think there's an issue. Every time I hear people criticize his defense, they'll bring up like one play. And it's like, and what I try to repeatedly tell people is each team on average in an NBA game has 100 possessions. So don't focus on just one possession or two possessions. Focus on the body of work. It's why, like, when you see stories where people will pull out like one play from a game and say, notice how he did this on this play. It's like, it's one play. It doesn't like focus on the whole overall body of work. And if Kaminga was a bad defensive player in reality, the defensive matchup statistics would show that, where people are scoring on him at will and they're not. He's doing fine there. And then Carson Taylor, thank you for all the donations tonight. Writing, and this is a good point. This tonight, I believe, was the first game all season that Quentin Post dressed up for the Warriors. He's been playing for Santa Cruz. He is on a two-way contract, did not play. I would have liked to see him play, but at the same time, I don't know if he's ready. He was probably in uniform more so for insurance purposes. What are your thoughts, Sophia? Like, do you think Quentin Post should be getting minutes now? I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I just don't necessarily know if I would like to see him take away those minutes from Trace Jackson Davis or even Kevon Looney or Kyle Anderson, even when he plays center. I don't know if he's quite at that stage yet, but it's an interesting prospect for if he continues to develop. That would be huge. Big time.
And this is where I feel like Kevin Dana would be a good guest. He's so busy these days. But I need to watch one of these Santa Cruz games. I want to see Quentin Post in action, and I wouldn't mind seeing him get some minutes in a Warriors uniform. Good point there. All right, so real fast, we'll go through the scoreboard because it is late as we wrap it up. It's 11:30 p.m. Sophia, thank you for joining me on a Monday night. And for folks listening on Tuesday, welcome as well. So going around the NBA, a lot of games on a Monday night. The Atlanta Hawks improved to 7-8. They defeat the Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center, if that's the name of their arena. Was your dad calling this game tonight?
He was, yeah.
Was he bummed? The Atlanta Hawks beat the Kings 109-108.
Yeah, the Kings they're very short-handed right now. I want to say Sabonis is out and Monk is out and DeMar DeRozan is out. So they kind of have some heavy hitters that are out. But De'Aaron Fox has been playing unconsciously recently. So
great call on that. Yes, he had the 60-point game. He had a 49-point game after that? Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure that was a number.
And then tonight he had 28 points. I didn't know the Kings were dealing with that level of Are these serious injuries? I mean, what's going on with these guys? Like, why are so many people out at once? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact severity of the injuries. Currently they're out, and it's unfortunate because that's kind of one of the teams that had a lot of promise in the Western Conference this year.
Carson Taylor saying that give Quentin Post, Gary Payton second minutes. Yeah, not a bad call. So anyways, going back to the Kings, tough loss for them to lose at home to Atlanta. 109, 108, the final there. Again, Trae Young only had 7 points in this game. DeAndre Hunter with 24 points in the win for the Hawks. We mentioned De'Aaron Fox with 28 in the loss. Keon Ellis at 33.6 rebounds. The Orlando Magic defeating the declining, the franchise, the organization that's in a tailspin right now, the Phoenix Suns, who started off hot, but Kevin Durant goes down, and so too does the team. They lose to Orlando at home tonight, 109-99. Franz Wagner, 32 points, 8 rebounds in the win. Tyus Jones, who, again, I thought was a fantastic pickup for the Suns, 18 points, 8 assists in the loss. The Milwaukee Bucks, this was a big win for them. I mean, they've had a rough start to the season. They beat the Houston Rockets at home. This is the first win for them I can remember that was against a good team. 101-100 the final. Brook Lopez snapping out of what seems like a season-long slump. 27 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Fred VanVleet, 26 points, 6 rebounds in the loss. Sophia, are the Bucks back? Is it just a one-game anomaly? Any thought?
Oh, it's too early to say that, but I mean, just how great Giannis is of a player, I don't think the Bucks will ever completely be out of the conversation, especially with how open the Eastern Conference is.
Big time. Oh, especially that, right? And it leads to the next game, which the Raptors were at home. They defeated the Indiana Pacers 130-119. RJ Barrett, who's actually having a good season, he poured in 39 points, added 9 rebounds. I feel like RJ Barrett would be perfect on the Warriors, side note, but that's just me. Pascal Siakam in the loss, 25 points, 10 rebounds. And the Raptors, a perfect example of the Eastern Conference, how that's – imagine if the Warriors had just night after night of Wizards, Hawks, Raptors, Hornets, Pistons. Geez, it'd be such a different life if that was the opposition. The Knicks, and Sophia, please jump in at any point if you have any thoughts on these.
Yeah.
The Knicks defeated the Washington Wizards at Madison Square Garden tonight, 134-106. Jalen Brunson with 26 points, 11 assists. Jonas Valanciunas, a player a lot of people linked to the Warriors, 18 points, 8 rebounds in the loss. The Knicks improved to 8-6 on the year. The Wizards dropped to 2-11. And I forgot to mention the records for the previous game. The Raptors are now 3-12. The Indiana Pacers dropped to 6-8 in that loss. 2 more for you. Sophia, your Miami Heat, they defeated the hapless, the plummeting, the tail spinning Philadelphia 76ers, 106-89. Jimmy Butler, 30 points, 10 rebounds in this game. McCain in the loss, I don't even know who that is, had 20 points in the loss for the Sixers. And
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
So Jared McCain is the rookie that the Sixers drafted, who kind of has been seeming like one of the only bright spots for that team so far this season. But with the Heat, it's also great to see Jimmy Butler coming back and having a strong performance.
There you go. Jared McCain, was he like a lottery pick, or like I don't know anything
He was
about him.
first rounder from Duke.
Yeah, 20th pick. Oh, Duke. There you go. So he's got some pedigree. 20th pick in the draft, 6'3", 195. Oh, and he's filling in for Tyrese Maxey. There you go. Or at least, yeah. So, okay. So there you go. So Philly has something going for him. Joel Embiid played in this game, 11 points, 8 rebounds, a minus 22 in net rating. This has not been his year so far with injuries, poor play. And last but not least, or maybe it is least, the Chicago Bulls defeated the Detroit Pistons tonight, 122-112. The Bulls were led by Nikola Vucevic, 29 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. Cade Cunningham in the loss, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. Sophia, how can people follow you on social media and anything else you'd like to promote as we wrap this show up?
Yeah, on Twitter, I am at Sophia Jones _2. And for more of me, I am the color analyst for University of San Francisco women's basketball. And we actually play on Thursday versus Boise State at Chase Center. So it's a part of a doubleheader with the men's team. They're playing University of Memphis. So should be a cool little environment if anyone feels like stopping by.
Hell yeah, dude. That sounds awesome. Remind me so I can promote it on future shows. So that's this Thursday, the USF Dons are playing at Chase?
Yes, the women's team, we play Boise State, and then the men's team, they play University of Memphis. Like I said, it's a doubleheader, both a part of the Legacy Tournament Series at Chase Center for the USF
love it.
Dons.
I love it. Good stuff. SG Sports Talk channel in the chat, inviting me with Baller. Tell him I say hello, please. I love Eric. It's too late for me tonight, man. But Eric has my number. Dude, reach out to me, and post game is probably not going to happen, but give me another day or time, and I'll happily join you. And thanks for joining us tonight. Otherwise, yeah, that does it. So thank you, everyone. I know the loss was a bummer, frustrating game. The Clippers are just a pest. What are you going to do? The good news is the Warriors are 10-3, and they're still atop the Western Conference. The Warriors' next play, I'm looking at my schedule right now, just to see where we're at. They're off tomorrow, and then they're back home Wednesday to take on the same Atlanta Hawks that just beat the Sacramento Kings. Did the Hawks have that one guy they got? What's his name? Is it Dyson Daniels that they got from the Pelicans in that trade for DeJounte Murray? I'm hearing phenomenal things about him. Like, he's one of the best defenders in the league. And is that true? Do you know anything about him, or have you been following the Hawks at all? I know that's a random team to bring up, but I've been hearing good things about their wings, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I haven't been following too much, but I have kind of heard things about Dyson Daniels and kind of being a solid 3-and-D player.
Yeah, Sam, I've heard that too. And then Doggy saying, technically OKC's in first in the West. When it comes to the NBA, Doggy, and just to enlighten the whole audience on this, I always go by the loss column, and that's why you'll notice a lot of sports broadcasters and media individuals doing the same thing. Just because throughout the NBA season, it's very rare for all the teams to be lined up in terms of the number of games played. So, for example, even though OKC, you're right, technically is in first place, them and the Warriors are tied in the loss column. And the only reason why the Thunder are ahead is because they played one extra game and they have one extra win. So technically the Thunder are a half game ahead of the Warriors at 11-3. The Warriors are 10-3, but they are tied in the loss column. And the fact that the Warriors beat the Thunder earlier this year makes me not worried about them. But I hear you, Doggy. Otherwise, Sophia, thank you again, as always. Thank you for joining me on a late Monday night. Normally we host these shows on Monday afternoon. Unless there's a game, then we'll do post game. But Sophia, thank you as always. You are fantastic. And thank you to the audience. And we'll be back at this soon. Are we good? Are we done?
Think we're good.
Bye-bye.